Well, this is Dave Gaddis, and today we're interviewing Wendy Shabay here in the Freeze Nichols office in Fort Worth. And it's November 24th. So, Wendy, welcome.
Thank you.
Let's start at the beginning. If you could tell us when and where you were born.
I was born in Fort Worth in 1971.
Okay. Did you live in Fort Worth all your childhood?
I did.
Okay. High school here?
High school here at LD Bell in Hurst.
Okay. And where did you go to college?
Texas A&M.
And what did you study?
Environmental design.
Okay. And what made you choose environmental design?
I always wanted to do interior stuff is really what I wanted to go into at first, but I was very visionary and loved picturing things, and so that's why I went to Texas A&M to be an architect, actually.
Okay. But you ended up with a degree in environmental design?
Yes.
Okay. And who were some of the professors that you had?
Oh, goodness.
Anybody stand out that...
Most of them aren't living anymore.
Oh,
Is that
okay.
sad?
That's okay.
No, I guess anybody. I mean,
How about classmates?
Well, Richard Lukey was actually a classmate of mine from now, one of the planners and keep up with a lot of the architects, but since that was my primary program then.
Okay. And so what did you do after you got out of college?
I went to work for an architecture firm.
And which firm was that?
Well, that's a harder answer. It was part of Facility Development Services, Service Master, and then it was RTKL ended up buying them as part of their healthcare.
Okay. And what kinds of projects did you do with them?
We did healthcare master planning. Work started out in the architecture part, but then I started working on some healthcare master plans.
Okay. What, campus planning and stuff like that?
Campus planning, started doing some facility layouts and doing all the floor plans and stuff. Did a lot of travel to Oregon and a lot of different places.
Okay. And any particular project that stands out from that time?
The Oregon Health Science Center was really cool. Huge health science center up in Portland, and they had nothing in AutoCAD, nothing. So I spent a lot of time measuring every single building on all their campus to get it into AutoCAD plans.
Okay, that sounds exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then what did you do after RTK?
So I was there 2 years, did a couple of master plans, went from like doing the wall section details that most architects start out, and then started doing some planning and fell in love with it. I realized I was much more of a big picture thinker, like looking at the connectivity and such around just a campus or a building. So realized I really wanted to get into planning, and for that reason I wanted to work for a planner, and also was ready to get back to Fort Worth. So I left after 2 years.
So where were you located?
I was in Dallas. Well, actually in Las Colinas.
Okay. So after 2 years, you went to...
2 years I went to Gideon Toll
Okay.
to work for James Toll. I was the only other planner in the office underneath James, and we worked on a lot of urban design type projects. I spent 9.5 years there.
Such as, what projects did you work on with James?
Oh, goodness. Probably the signature one was the Trinity River Vision. I was the project manager on that, worked directly on that. So that was about the last 1.5 2 years of my almost 10 years there. I worked on that. Other projects, Lancaster Corridor, when 30 came down and the whole redevelopment of that. Did several TIFs, did the downtown plan, the urban design guidelines for Fort Worth. A lot of things around the Fort Worth area. There's hardly a project in Fort Worth that I don't feel like we didn't work on at that time.
Well, this is probably an appropriate time to talk about James. You want to talk about James Toll?
Yeah, sure. He was awesome. He was probably one of the most visionary people I knew. What I loved about James was he just knew how to get things done. He just knew who to talk to, how to operate, how to get projects done. Very, great at consensus building. So for, again, 9.5 years, it was just me and James. We were the only ones. We worked on some massive projects, and people don't realize it was just the two of us. So I learned a ton from him. I mean, I just sat back. He took me to all of his meetings. So I sat back and just watched. You know, most times I was the fly on the wall taking notes, but got to observe the way he handled audiences and the things he did, and learned a tremendous amount from him.
Okay, so 9.5 years there, and then what?
And then I came to Friesen Nichols. I loved working with James, and we left on really good terms. But one of the things I had realized was, you know, if I was ever going to have my voice heard and my ideas and stuff, probably need to move out. So, and he understood that. He understood kind of being in a company. Him and Bob Herchert were good friends, and so he had felt strongly about Friesen Nichols. So I came here. Friesen Nichols didn't have at the time, other than you, Dave Gaddis, back in the day, and Craig Farmer, that we didn't have any certified planners, and they were working on some master plans that the architects had got, but didn't have a certified planner. So I came to Friesen Nichols. I was the first AICP they had here.
Okay, well, let's go back to when you got involved in APA. Do you remember? Was that in school or with your first job?
I got involved back when I was with Gideon Toll, and underneath James. In fact, I distinctly remember James and I coming over to your office, working on something in Benbrook. I want to say it actually probably was the Trinity River Vision, because we were trying to get the trails down to the lake or something, and we came over. Anyway, it was when you were president, or I don't know, you were playing some role at the time. But anyway, I remember James talking to you about that, and we had a conversation following that he actually didn't have his AICP, but he was a member of planning and encouraged me to do that. So that's when I first got involved. And I don't even know exactly what the year was. It was probably 2002, 1,
okay,
something like that.
And do you remember when you got your AICP?
Actually, I guess I became a member before then, because I want to say I got my AICP in 2003.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm on video, so I don't really know. Don't quote me on that, because I need to go look at my picture on the wall.
That's okay. So you started here at Friesen Nichols, and they didn't have a planning group at the time, so tell me what it was like then, and what kinds of projects did you get involved with?
They were primarily working on campus master plans. Again, Alfred Vidari and several others had won some campus projects, and so my very first project when I came here was Tarrant County College, their district-wide campus master plan. So I was able to really dive into that one. That was the first master plan they had ever done. It was a big project. Again, getting to know all their campuses very well. That was the first one. And then, several campus master plans, started getting into corridor planning and downtown planning, and then we brought on the comprehensive planners, and have since really taken that on.
Okay, so there were no planners at the time, but how many planners are on staff now?
There are 12 within our group now. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And been any particular projects that you're particularly proud of that you worked on? There's a lot now. Several of the downtown plans, downtown Fort Worth just had the opportunity to update their strategic action plan after the one that I had done with Gideon Toll. So it was exciting to be able to do it 10 years later and actually be, the lead on that. We worked on the City of Fort Worth urban villages, and so that was a good one to kind of start to come to fruition on a lot of their plans. A lot of corridors that we've seen kind of turn over over the years, and now doing a lot of comprehensive planning. Okay, such as who you doing comp plans for these days?
Right now we're doing them all over Texas, and several years ago we
acquired Duncan Sefco. That was the one thing that I didn't bring to the table, was the comprehensive plans. And so we brought on Dan Sefco and all of his group, and again, learned a lot about comprehensive plans. But they had done some big ones for SCO, and working on long views. Just finished Louisville's right now.
Okay. And so all this process, you've gotten more involved in APA. So how did you first get involved in the actual day-to-day organization? Did you start out as a section officer?
Well, I did, but actually the very first exposure I had, it was the 2005 conference in Fort Worth. I was on that conference planning committee. Okay. And chaired the programs committee, or co-chaired with Dana Bergdorf, and we worked on the programs. Got to know a lot of people through that. That's probably one area I'd recommend to other planners if they're getting involved, is start out with the conference committee, because it was a real good way to get to know people. So started with that, and then I think after that might have gotten asked to do the run for secretary, and did for the Midwest section, and worked with that, and then went on to run for the section director-elect, and so went through some of my years with the Midwest section.
And who were some of the people involved in the section when you were the officer, when you were section director, for example?
Let's see, Dana was our section director. Of course, Richard Lukey was our Midwest, PODO. Clayton husband was the secretary then, and 20 years later, he's, Richard Shell, Ken Baker, Beth Knight was a long-term treasurer when I was there.
Okay. So after the section officers, then what?
After that, I think I took a year or two off, and tried to, still maintain being involved in the conferences. I've always enjoyed doing those, and then I think David Hoover and I talked about running for the state officer. So did secretary, and then did the president-elect, and kind of went through that. So.
Okay. And you're currently president?
I'm currently president.
And what kinds of issues or projects are you working on that you're particularly proud of?
There's a couple of things. I've always been real interested, and I think part of this goes back to James. I mean, just being able to kind of watch and being mentored by him, and learning the value in that. I've wished that same mentorship for every person I know. I wish everybody could go through that same experience. And so the mentorship was a real big deal to me, and wanted to be able to put some kind of program in place to be able to do that. Also, just recognizing getting a younger generation involved in planning was real important to me as well. So the emerging planning leaders are probably the two big things that we've actually implemented this year. So it's pretty rewarding.
Oh, good. And some of the people you've worked at the chapter level, that anybody stand out that you've worked with?
Well, in terms of the emerging planning leaders, Doug McDonald has been awesome. He's an up-and-coming star, and he's helped a lot because he's just a go-getter. And so worked, when I was underneath, when I first came in, Renee was president, and so when she shared some of those same goals, and being able to again work with David's always been great, again at wanting to get some of our younger folks involved, and very supportive that, and you know, the knowledge of you and Craig Farmer and Dan Sefco, and I mean, just all the knowledge that's there, being able to transfer that down has been really important.
Okay. And one of the perks as being chapter president is you also get to be involved at the national level on the chapter president's council. You want to talk a little bit about that and what kinds of issues that you may be working on?
That's been very enlightening. CPC does, I mean, the chapter president's council and even national APA, there's more facets to that than I ever knew possible. There's a lot that they do, and of course the divisions council and all the work that they do and all the chapter presidents. It's been really interesting to come together and hear some of the issues, some of the things that we, quite frankly, do really well in Texas. I think we're an envy of a lot of different states. It's just getting to kind of see how APA operates and all the things that they do. I mean, it really is a spectacular resource that I think I didn't totally get till I really got a chance to see it firsthand of what all the resources are out there.
Okay. And your term ends fall of next year?
Fall of next year, I'll move to past president,
Okay.
for 2 years.
Anything else that you want to accomplish before you leave your term on the chapter, or any other?
I really want to get this mentorship going. We've kicked it off this year. It's going to take some work to really get that really active and going. You know, it's a great idea, and everybody signed on. We had a tremendous response. 250 people that signed up to be a part of that in its first year. But I know it's going to take some work to make it successful and to continue on. So.
And you might describe how that was set up. I mean, it's not just a one-on-one mentorship. You've kind of created these communities of 6 or 7 people.
Yeah, I think for a couple of reasons. We created communities. One, because in my opinion, you can learn no matter the age isn't the barrier. It's not a years of experience of one person to someone who's been in there 20 years. I think that there's mentoring and learning from one another and collaboration that can happen across the board. For example, I've always been in the private sector, and so I would love to come spend a day at City Hall and see the ins and outs of what goes on to prepare, for a P&Z meeting. I think it would help me in my day job. And same thing, I would love for somebody else to come see when I have to do a scope and fee and a contract, or what we go through from the city side. I would love so I think that there's collaboration there. There's collaboration from years of experience from different types of professionals. Some folks are fairly narrow, and others have got to kind of be everything to everybody. So, long story, but what we tried to do out of that is create communities of 5, 6, 7 people that paired, our FAI CP, our 20-year folks with our 10-year, with our 5-year. Tried to put those geographically, but we gave everybody some criteria of what was most important to them. And to be able to put those together. So there's one leader in a group of 5, and so it's a very diverse group to be able to all come together.
Okay. And I hope it all turns out. I know I've been assigned to a community.
You have.
And we'll see how that works out.
Yeah.
One of the themes that has come up with some of our interviews has been gender bias, and I was just wondering if you've ever experienced anything like that, or are we past that? What are your views on women and
Well, considering all the people on our executive board right now are women and have been the last couple of years, it's kind of cool and impressive. I think we've gotten past that. I don't really see the issue in planning. I don't really see it in planning. I've seen it a little bit being in a big engineering company. There's definitely some transition that has happened, but I would sure like to think we're past that. I don't know that we 100% are, but certainly in our role, and in APA, in our professional society role, yeah, we're definitely past that. It really is. The last 2 years, our president-elect, past president, secretary, and treasurer have all been females, which I'm like, so we might have just swung it the other way.
Well, you raised the issue of the engineering firm. It was my experience that it may or may not have been the gender, and there probably was, but there was also kind of a class system among professions that if you weren't an engineer, you were kind of. Do you still see that?
That one's probably more prevalent.
Okay.
That one is definitely more prevalent. Again, I think we've made really good strides. When I first came here, it was hard being a planner in a big engineering company, and even when I came in from an architecture side, same thing. We don't make the big dollars. I wish planning was viewed more importantly as a design. Everyone to pay big bucks to design something, but they're less inclined to pay big bucks to plan something. I see that being, one of the bigger issues is that people not valuing planning the way that, of course, I think they ought to, because it's so critically important. And so I think because of that, fees are lower and that kind of thing, that, you don't always get the notoriety that you would in other firms. And, I think our cities are getting better at it, but, there's still some that just won't pay to plan. And that's the bigger bias. They'll pay to design all day long, but not pay to plan.
We've kind of touched on who some of your mentors were, and obviously James Toll was one, but are there other people that have kind of shaped your career?
James was huge, and he's definitely one. But even here at Friesen Nichols, Alfred Vidari was who I started with, in architecture. And Alfred was really big on professional service. I mean, he's probably one that planted some of the seed of give back to your profession. I've always been one to give back to the community, but to give back to your profession. And he's head of the architectural board right now, but he really instilled in us and has very much promoted us internally to be involved and give back. So, and then Dan Sefco has been great to learn from. I mean, Dan's just one of those guys that, everybody loves him. He's great at the relationship part of planning. Certainly respected in the industry, but has got a personality, that's that you admire, because he's just makes it he's easy to work with for sure.
Okay. On the flip side, or do you have any proteges or anybody that you've helped mentor?
Yeah, I think so. There's several within our company. I mean, Shad Como, he's now done a couple of conferences. He's about to plan the next conference for the Houston section, and so seeing him rise up. Chelsea Irby is one of my young mentors that we actually just hired, and she's now the student president at UTA. Now there's been several. Brandon Gonzalez is with the Northwest section. So we've got a lot of people within that have grown up, kind of taken on some of those same responsibilities. So that's good to see. But even outside of that, we do a lot of mentoring here. We have mentors that we're assigned to. So no matter, even if they're not a planner, but getting them involved within their professional societies and things are very important.
Okay. Talked a lot about APA. Are you involved in any other professional organizations?
I am. I'm the current chair right now of Northeast Leadership Forum.
Okay.
which is a lot of mayors and city managers and business leaders in the Northeast Tarrant area. That's a whole other educational deal to kind of see just how city managers and mayors work together with all the different cities, particularly in our metroplex. So I've learned a lot just from sitting back and watching them and seeing how they operate. Been involved with Downtown Fort Worth Inc. again on several committees over the years. Through that, I was involved with Southeast Fort Worth Inc. To help develop the Southeast area.
Okay. If you had any advice to give to a young planner, what would it be?
I guess there's two things. There's one related to, again, just to initially get involved. People don't, always know what they could get involved with. I think I said earlier, getting involved at the conference level is a really good thing. In terms of new students and skills coming out as I'm hiring, one thing that I see a lot of is a lot of students are fairly narrow focused in what they want to do. Come out and I want to be a transportation planner for TODs for mixed use development. Okay. I can't support that, 40 hours a week. I can't hire for that. We get to think broader. I think there's a lot of specializations out there, and to make yourself very marketable, I always tell people, okay, let's think a little broader. That might be what you like to do, but what are broader things that you can bring to the table? Because most of the times especially on the private side, you got to be able to do a lot of things and cover a lot of different things. So I think that's one. The other, along those same lines, from a professional standpoint, I like that APA has gotten broader in its reach. I've seen professional organizations that have become fairly narrow focused, and I think it's kind of come back to hurt them a little bit. And I think of APA and, what I first thought of 20 years ago of it being a kind of group of planners, work for cities, they write codes and ordinances and, land use. And now to see us looking into transportation and bikes and, being given money because they're realizing that in order to help obesity, that we need good, well-planned communities for health reasons, and just all those different things that I think are coming into play. We seem to get broader and broader in our thinking and our reach and our education, and I think that's really important. I really am glad to see that.
Okay. We've talked about your professional side. You want to talk about your personal side, family?
Oh,
I
yeah.
think your family has an interesting story.
Well, thanks. They, so my husband's a missionary, and I, of course, work full time. I'm kind of the breadwinner, I guess, if you will. We have 3 kids. We have 2 daughters that are 16 and 17, about to be 17 and 18 next week. And then we have a son that we adopted from Africa who is 11 now. And we adopted him when he was 2.5. So it was, 9, 10, 11 years ago, we actually started looking at adoption. When my kids were, 5 and 6 years old, we started looking at adoption and tried to adopt for a while out of Sierra Leone in Africa, and had a real interesting story. It's probably another video for another day about what happened there. But anyway, we did not get our son there then at the time. But then we were asked to adopt another little boy. And through very raw emotions, we said yes. And we didn't see him until he came to the U.S. And he's now the coolest part of our family that we have. And so my husband's continued to do mission work, mostly in Africa, but a little bit all over.
ever since. So we've got a real passion for that.
Okay. Your daughters are getting to the age of going to college. Are they going to go into planning?
You know, I thought for a short time that my daughter was going to be interested in architecture, engineering, planning, something along those lines. She was very, black and white and creative, and but now she's decided on dentistry. So no, I don't think I'm going to be able to get her. My other one wants to be a preacher, so there's no doubt she'll follow my husband's footsteps and change the world.
Okay. Well, we've talked about a lot of different things. Is there anything that you want to talk about that we haven't talked about?
I don't think so. I think I couldn't say enough about APA and the people that have been involved in our organization, and people like you, Dave Gaddis, that I want to get on record as being a real good, help for many years in the history. It's always, especially as all these young people grow up, it's always good to have somebody that knows all the history and where bodies are buried and everything else. So.
Well, speaking of APA, do you have aspirations for higher office, or have you given that any thought?
I've started thinking about it a little bit. When you think of whether that's me or whoever, I would love to see another Texas person in there. We're the second largest chapter in the U.S. and you and Ann have served us well for many years in the national arena, and it'd be good to get new folks on CPC or somewhere in there one of these days.
Okay. Well, with that optimistic note, we can go ahead and close. I want to thank you for taking time to visit with us today.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.